Have you ever watched a child give up on life because everyone around them focused on what they couldn't do instead of discovering what they could accomplish? What if I told you that sometimes the greatest disability isn't physical? It's the inability of others to see past limitations to extraordinary potential. Contrary to what expensive specialists believed, 8-year-old Sophia Maxwell's blindness wasn't the real disability destroying her future. It was her family's inability to see past her condition to the extraordinary child waiting to be discovered, nurtured, and celebrated for her unique gifts. I've studied hundreds of disability breakthrough stories, and this one reveals something powerful about human potential that medical experts and educational specialists often miss completely. It exposes how traditional approaches can accidentally destroy confidence while claiming to provide help. By the end of this story, you'll understand why the right person doesn't need sight to help a blind child see infinite possibilities, and how touch can unlock dreams that expensive technology and professional credentials never could reach or nurture. Miss Grace Washington transformed Sophia from a defeated child who had given up on independence and learning to a confident young girl, creating art, reading braille fluently, and pursuing ambitious dreams, proving that disability becomes extraordinary ability when someone believes in unlimited potential. If you skip this story, you'll miss the moment that shows why the most powerful vision comes not from eyes that see obstacles, but from hearts that refuse to accept limitations and choose to celebrate human potential in all its beautiful forms. The Maxwell family's 8,000-square-foot mansion in Pacific Palisades represented the pinnacle of adaptive luxury, every room equipped with voice-controlled technology, tactile guidance systems, and safety features designed to accommodate their 8-year-old blind daughter. But inside this palace of expensive solutions, a brilliant child was slowly disappearing beneath the weight of professional limitations and well-intentioned low expectations. Robert Maxwell, worth $89 million from his pharmaceutical empire, sat in his technology-filled office, reviewing bills that would bankrupt most families, but represented his desperate attempt to give his daughter every possible advantage. His wife, Jennifer, a former interior designer who had abandoned her career to become Sophia's full-time advocate, coordinated schedules with medical specialists and educational experts who promised hope but delivered only modified limitations. Sophia Maxwell had been born blind due to a congenital condition that no amount of money could cure. But what was destroying this remarkable child wasn't her blindness. It was 3 years of expensive experts who had systematically taught her that blindness meant permanent dependence, lowered expectations, and a future of careful accommodation rather than bold achievement. The family's home had been transformed into what specialists called an adaptive environment at enormous cost. A $45,000 smart home system controlled lighting, temperature, and audio through voice commands. A $15,000 specialized computer with advanced speech software sat largely unused in Sophia's room. An $8,000 braille printer and reading system gathered dust because Sophia had been taught that braille was too difficult for her developmental level. The $12,000 mobility training equipment and orientation tools remained in their expensive cases because Sophia had been convinced that moving beyond familiar spaces was dangerous and inadvisable. A $25,000 sensory learning room with tactile walls and sophisticated audio systems had become a monument to unused potential, representing technologies that promised independence but delivered only expensive isolation. Dr. Sarah Kim, a pediatric ophthalmologist charging $500 per consultation, had confirmed Sophia's permanent blindness and recommended accepting realistic limitations rather than pursuing impossible dreams. Her focus on what Sophia would never be able to accomplish had cost the family $18,000 in consultations and tests over 3 years, with each appointment reinforcing messages of limitation and dependence. Mrs. Patricia Chen, an orientation and mobility specialist, at $400 per session, had taught basic white cane techniques focused on avoiding obstacles rather than exploring possibilities. Her training emphasized safety and restriction limiting Sophia's movement to safe zones within the mansion rather than developing confidence for independent navigation. The family had spent $24,000 on structured mobility training that actually decreased Sophia's willingness to explore her environment. Dr. Michael Torres, an educational psychologist, charging $350 per session, had assessed Sophia's cognitive abilities as limited by sensory deficits and recommended a special needs school with significantly lowered academic expectations. His curriculum focused on basic survival skills rather than intellectual development, assuming that blindness automatically meant reduced learning capacity. Another $1,600 to $800 had been spent on assessments and educational planning that systematically underestimated this child's extraordinary potential. Have you ever seen a child's natural curiosity destroyed by adults who focused on limitations instead of possibilities? The devastating result of these expensive interventions was a once curious and outgoing child becoming withdrawn, defeated, and convinced of her own inadequacy. Sophia had stopped asking questions about the world around her, stopped attempting new activities, and refused to explore beyond the few familiar spaces that adults had designated as appropriate for blind children. The final blow came when Westwood Academy, a prestigious private school, refused Sophia's admission, despite the Maxwell family's ability to pay full tuition. "We don't have facilities to accommodate severe disabilities," the admissions director had explained, recommending segregated special education institutions designed for children with significant limitations. Sophia had overheard this conversation and understood with devastating clarity that she was considered too difficult for normal educational opportunities. In that moment, an 8-year-old girl internalized the message that her blindness made her fundamentally different, less capable, and unworthy of the same expectations and opportunities as other children. The accumulated impact of 3 years of professional help had created learned helplessness more disabling than blindness itself. Sophia refused to leave her bedroom for days at a time, stopped eating meals with her family, and destroyed her adaptive toys and braille books in frustrated rage against a world that had taught her she was broken. Robert and Jennifer, despite their wealth and resources, felt completely helpless watching their daughter disappear into depression and despair. They had followed every expert recommendation, purchased every adaptive technology, and provided every accommodation that money could buy, yet their child was more isolated and defeated than ever. It was in this moment of complete desperation that Jennifer Maxwell found Grace Washington's modest online profile. Grace was a 54-year-old former special education teacher from Atlanta, seeking private caregiving work to supplement her retirement income while caring for her aging mother in California. What the Maxwell family didn't know was that Grace brought 25 years of experience teaching visually impaired children in under-resourced public schools where she had learned to unlock potential using creativity, determination, and unconditional belief in human capability rather than expensive technology and professional limitations. Grace's master's degree in special education with blindness specialty had taught her advanced braille techniques and tactile learning methods that expensive private specialists often overlooked. More importantly, her quarter-century of experience had proven that blind children could achieve extraordinary success when adults focused on developing abilities rather than managing disabilities. But to the Maxwell family, Grace represented simply another attempt to find someone willing to supervise Sophia and keep her safe for $30 per hour, a fraction of what they had been paying specialists who had systematically destroyed their daughter's confidence and potential. Jennifer's phone call revealed everything wrong with their approach. "We need someone to manage Sophia's daily needs since she can't do things independently. She requires constant supervision and assistance with basic activities." What Jennifer didn't realize was that she was about to hire someone who would prove that Sophia wasn't incapable of independence. She had simply been taught that dependence was her only option. Grace Washington was about to demonstrate that the most powerful vision comes not from expensive technology or professional credentials, but from hearts that refuse to accept artificial limitations and see extraordinary potential waiting to be discovered and celebrated. While the Maxwell family prepared for another expensive consultation about managing Sophia's special needs, Grace Washington made a decision that would revolutionize everything they believed about blindness potential and what their remarkable daughter could achieve when given proper guidance and unwavering belief. Grace's philosophy was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of focusing on what Sophia couldn't see, she would explore all the extraordinary ways Sophia could experience, understand, and interact with the world through her enhanced non-visual senses. This represented a complete paradigm shift from limitation-based thinking to possibility-focused development. "Sophia, honey," Grace said softly outside the locked bedroom door where the child had been hiding for 3 days. "I'm not here to teach you how to be blind or manage your disability. I'm here to discover all the amazing things you can do that sighted people sometimes miss completely." This statement confused and intrigued Sophia, who had spent 3 years hearing about accommodations, limitations, and things she would never be able to accomplish. No adult had ever suggested that blindness might come with unique advantages and extraordinary capabilities that deserve celebration rather than pity. Grace's first revolutionary act was discarding every piece of literature about managing blind children that filled the Maxwell family's extensive library. These materials focus obsessively on what blind children supposedly can't do, Grace explained to bewildered parents. "I'm much more interested in discovering what Sophia can do better than anyone else in this house." Instead of traditional mobility training focused on avoiding obstacles and staying safe, Grace introduced Sophia to what she called touch exploration, using hands as sophisticated information-gathering tools that could reveal textures, temperatures, shapes, spatial relationships, and environmental details completely invisible to sight-dependent people. "Sophia, baby girl, your fingers are like superpowered detective tools," Grace explained during their first real session together. "They can tell you things about objects, people, and environments that eyes sometimes miss entirely. We're going to develop these superpowers until you can understand the world in ways that amaze everyone around you." Grace brought materials she had collected during 25 years of teaching fabric samples with dramatically different textures, wooden blocks with intricate carved patterns, musical instruments from various cultures, plants with distinctive leaf shapes and scents, and architectural models that revealed spatial relationships through touch rather than sight. How many of us use our eyes so much that we never develop the extraordinary potential of our other senses? Within 1 week, Grace had helped Sophia discover that her non-visual senses were extraordinarily developed and capable of processing information with remarkable sophistication. Sophia could identify different types of wood by touch alone, distinguish musical notes and harmonies with perfect pitch that amaze professional musicians, and detect subtle scent variations that reveal details about environments, plants, and even people's emotional states. Most people rely on their eyes so heavily that they never develop these incredible abilities, Grace explained to Robert and Jennifer, who watched in amazement as their daughter demonstrated capabilities they had never imagined possible. Sophia's brain has been developing these extraordinary skills naturally. Our job is to celebrate and enhance them instead of treating them as mere compensation for a supposed deficit. Grace's confidence-building approach was revolutionary compared to the deficit-focused methods of previous specialists. Every interaction began with recognizing something Sophia had accomplished, no matter how small, and every challenge was framed as an adventure rather than a therapeutic exercise designed to help her cope with her limitations. "Sophia, the way you identified that fabric texture was absolutely brilliant," Grace would say with genuine enthusiasm. "You noticed the weave pattern and the weight in ways that showed real intelligence and sophisticated observation skills. That's not compensation for blindness, that's exceptional ability that deserves recognition and development." Grace began introducing increasingly complex challenges, always presented as exciting discoveries rather than medical interventions. Sophia learned to navigate the mansion not by memorizing obstacle locations like a careful robot, but by developing spatial awareness through sound patterns, air currents, tactile landmarks, and environmental cues that created a rich, three-dimensional mental map. While educational specialists had recommended simplified curriculum, focusing on basic life skills, Grace introduced Sophia to advanced concepts through tactile and auditory methods that revealed the child's exceptional intelligence and natural love of learning. Grace brought three-dimensional models of geographical features that allowed Sophia to understand mountain ranges, river systems, ocean depths, and continental relationships through hands-on exploration that made abstract concepts concrete and memorable. Mathematical principles came alive through manipulative objects that transformed numbers and equations into spatial relationships that Sophia could literally grasp and manipulate. Sophia isn't learning disabled or cognitively limited, Grace explained to parents who had been told the opposite by expensive specialists. She's learning differently. When we present information in ways that match her exceptional learning style, she excels far beyond typical grade-level expectations. The Braille breakthrough came when Grace presented written language not as a slow, laborious substitute for real reading, but as a sophisticated communication system that allowed rapid information processing through touch. Previous specialists had introduced Braille apologetically as a necessary accommodation for Sophia's reading disability. Grace presented Braille as a superpower that allowed access to information through touch, while simultaneously developing extraordinary finger sensitivity and spatial processing abilities. Within 3 weeks, Sophia was reading Braille faster than many sighted children read print-devouring adventure stories and expressing passionate desires to write her own narratives. Grace's introduction of tactile arts revolutionized the family's understanding of Sophia's creative potential. No previous expert had considered artistic expression possible for blind children. But Grace brought clay textile materials and three-dimensional design projects that allowed creative expression through touch rather than sight. Sophia's first clay sculpture, a detailed horse with accurate proportions, flowing mane, and expressive features, amazed everyone who experienced it. Her fingers had created art that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of form, movement, proportion, and a beauty that transcended visual representation. Sophia experiences the world in ways that create unique artistic vision. Grace explained to parents who had never imagined their daughter as an artist. She's not trying to copy what sighted people see, she's creating from her own rich sensory experience, and the results are extraordinary. Grace's social confidence training was equally revolutionary. Instead of teaching Sophia to fit in with sighted children by minimizing her blindness, Grace taught her to confidently explain her abilities and educate others about different ways of experiencing and understanding the world. "You're not the girl who can't see," Grace coached with fierce pride. "You're the girl who experiences the world through amazing senses that most people never develop or appreciate. That makes you special and valuable, not disabled or limited." Grace practiced conversations where Sophia could confidently describe her abilities, answer questions about blindness with pride rather than shame, and demonstrate skills that impressed rather than triggered pity or uncomfortable sympathy. As Sophia flourished under Grace's guidance, Robert and Jennifer began questioning every assumption they had made about their daughter's potential capabilities and future possibilities. Family dinners transformed from careful assistance and protective monitoring to normal conversations, where Sophia contributed ideas, asked complex questions, and demonstrated independence that consistently amazed her parents. But the ultimate test was approaching a challenge that would prove whether Sophia's transformation represented genuine ability development or simply the result of one extraordinary teacher's exceptional methods and lowered standards. 3 months after Grace began working with Sophia, the Maxwell family faced a challenge that would test everything they had learned about their daughter's extraordinary potential. Westwood Academy, the prestigious private school that had previously rejected Sophia as too disabled for their programs, invited her to take their standard admission assessment after hearing remarkable reports about her development. Dr. Harrison Westwood's headmaster made the offer with professional skepticism and clearly stated expectations. "We've heard impressive claims about this child's supposed academic progress, he announced during a formal meeting in the Maxwell family's library. Our comprehensive assessment will determine whether these reports represent genuine achievement or simply the result of lowered standards and inflated encouragement. The test would cover reading comprehension, mathematical reasoning, scientific knowledge, creative expression, and social interaction, all areas where blind children were traditionally considered disadvantaged or incapable. Sophia would have 4 hours to prove that her development under Grace's guidance represented authentic academic excellence, not just feel-good progress designed to boost self-esteem. Robert and Jennifer felt their old fears and doubts returning with devastating force. Despite months of witnessing Sophia's remarkable growth and increasing confidence, Dr. Harrison's institutional authority and professional certainty carried weight that Grace's success stories couldn't match in their anxious minds. What if we've been fooling ourselves about Sophia's real abilities? Jennifer whispered to Robert after Dr. Harrison left. What if Grace has just been making her feel better without actually preparing her for genuine academic challenges that matter in the real world? When Sophia overheard her parents discussing the upcoming assessment with obvious anxiety and doubt, she immediately reverted to her old feelings of inadequacy, fear, and learned helplessness. The confident, curious child Grace had so carefully nurtured began to disappear, replaced by the defeated girl who believed she was fundamentally limited by her blindness. "I can't do it, Miss Grace," Sophia said through tears of frustration and terror. "They're going to discover that I'm really not smart enough for normal school like other kids. All the children there can see everything, and I'll just embarrass my family and prove that the doctors were right about me being limited." Grace faced a moment that would define both her career and Sophia's entire future trajectory. She could play it safe, acknowledge that traditional academic testing wasn't designed for blind children, and recommend that Sophia avoid the evaluation to prevent potential humiliation and setback. Or she could trust completely in the extraordinary abilities she had discovered and help Sophia prove that different ways of learning could excel in any environment. "Sophia, baby girl," Grace said with fierce conviction and unwavering confidence, "you're not going to take their tests the way sighted children would approach it. You're going to show them how a brilliant blind child experiences and understands the world in ways that might actually be superior to sight-dependent learning methods. Instead of traditional test preparation involving memorization drills and practice exercises, Grace spent 2 weeks helping Sophia understand how to translate her exceptional abilities into academic performance that would impress even traditionally minded educators who had never encountered non-visual excellence. Grace taught Sophia how to demonstrate her advanced spatial reasoning through 3-dimensional problem solving, how to showcase her superior auditory processing through verbal explanations of complex concepts, and how to use her enhanced tactile abilities to understand mathematical and scientific principles through hands-on exploration and manipulation. "You're not competing with sighted children using their methods, Sophia," Grace explained with absolute certainty. "You're going to show them a completely different way of being brilliant that they've never encountered before and may never see again." Have you ever watched someone transform their supposed weakness into their greatest strength? Test day arrived with the atmosphere of an academic trial that would determine Sophia's educational future. Dr. Harrison and 2 faculty members observed as Grace helped Sophia arrange her adaptive materials braille versions of written tests, tactile mathematical manipulatives, 3-dimensional models for scientific problems, and clay for creative expression. What happened next had never been witnessed in Westwood Academy's prestigious 75-year history. Instead of struggling to adapt to sighted methods and visual approaches, Sophia demonstrated learning strategies that actually revealed deeper understanding and more sophisticated thinking than traditional methods could provide or measure. For mathematical problems, Sophia used tactile blocks and spatial reasoning to solve complex equations while explaining her thinking process in ways that impressed and educated the observing faculty members. Her approach revealed mathematical relationships and conceptual understanding that purely visual learners might miss entirely. When presented with braille versions of reading passages, Sophia not only comprehended the material with exceptional accuracy, but provided literary analysis that demonstrated critical thinking skills far beyond her chronological age. Her responses revealed sophisticated understanding of character motivation, thematic development, and literary techniques that exceeded typical grade-level expectations. How did you understand the character's emotional development with such clarity and insight? Dr. Harrison asked with genuine curiosity and growing amazement. When you can't see facial expressions, you learn to really listen to how people's voices change when they feel different emotions, Sophia explained with growing confidence. I can hear things in the story's dialogue and descriptions that maybe people miss when they're focusing on visual details and pictures. The creative expression portion of the assessment had been considered impossible for blind children by previous educational experts, but Grace had prepared Sophia for exactly this challenge. Sophia chose to create a tactile sculpture while simultaneously narrating an original story, combining her enhanced spatial abilities with her sophisticated verbal skills in a display that captivated everyone present. This horse is running toward freedom and new adventures, Sophia explained as her skilled fingers shaped clay into flowing expressive forms. You can feel the power in his muscles and the joy in the way his mane flows behind him. He's not running away from something frightening. He's running towards something wonderful that he can sense but hasn't seen yet. Wait until you hear what Dr. Harrison said next. It shocked everyone in that room and changed everything. After 4 hours of watching Sophia demonstrate exceptional abilities through non-visual methods that exceeded typical performance standards, Dr. Harrison faced a moment that would challenge his 3 decades of traditional educational assumptions and institutional thinking. "Miss Washington," Dr. Harrison said quietly, his professional arrogance replaced by genuine humility and respect. "I owe you and Sophia a profound apology that I hope you can accept. We have completely failed to recognize that this child doesn't just meet our academic standards, she exceeds them in ways our traditional assessment methods could never measure, appreciate, or properly evaluate." Sophia looked up at Grace with pure joy, validation, and unshakable confidence. "Miss Grace, I told you I was smart in my own special way." "No, baby girl." Grace smiled through tears of pride and triumph. "You told me you were brilliant in ways that the world is just beginning to understand, appreciate, and celebrate as the extraordinary gifts they truly are." 6 months after Grace Washington first walked into the Maxwell mansion, Sophia was thriving at Westwood Academy, not in a special program or with constant accommodations, but as a full participant in regular classes where her unique abilities made her an exceptional student and genuinely valued classmate. Grace had been hired as Sophia's full-time educational coordinator at $75,000 annually, but her most important role couldn't be measured in salary. She had become the family's guide to understanding that Sophia's blindness was not a limitation requiring management, but a different way of experiencing exceptional intelligence, creativity, and human potential. Sophia was now reading at high school level in braille, creating tactile art that was proudly displayed in the school's main gallery, and tutoring sighted classmates in spatial reasoning and auditory learning techniques that amazed teachers and students alike. Her confidence had transformed from defeated acceptance of supposed limitations to proud celebration of her unique abilities and extraordinary potential. The Maxwell family had discovered that their daughter didn't need protection from the world's challenges. She needed preparation to contribute her remarkable gifts to it. Family relationships had been completely rebuilt around celebrating Sophia's achievements and supporting her ambitious dreams, rather than managing her supposed deficits and limitations. Dr. Harrison had implemented revolutionary new assessment methods at Westwood Academy that recognized different types of intelligence and learning styles, rather than forcing all students into identical visual-verbal molds. Grace became a highly sought consultant for the school training teachers to identify and nurture the unique abilities of all students, not just those who fit traditional learning expectations. The Maxwell family established the Different Abilities Foundation, providing scholarships for innovative educators like Grace to work with children whose extraordinary potential had been overlooked by traditional deficit-focused methods. Grace became a nationally recognized speaker and consultant, advocating passionately for ability-focused rather than limitation-focused approaches to disability and difference. Sophia had learned that blindness didn't define her limitations. It revealed her extraordinary capabilities that deserve celebration and development. She began mentoring other blind children, showing them through her own remarkable example that different didn't mean less capable, and that their unique ways of experiencing the world were valuable gifts to be developed and shared. Robert and Jennifer had learned that truly loving their daughter meant believing in her unlimited potential rather than protecting her from challenges that could help her grow. They discovered that Sophia's greatest need wasn't accommodation or special treatment. It was someone who could see her exceptional abilities rather than focus on her disability. The ripple effects extended throughout their community and beyond to national conversations about disability and human potential. Other prestigious families began questioning their own approaches to children with differences, recognizing that emotional confidence and ability development mattered more than expensive technology and professional accommodation. Sophia's story became a powerful example of how the right person can unlock extraordinary potential that expensive institutions and credentialed experts had completely overlooked or systematically underestimated through traditional approaches. If Sophia and Grace's story touched your heart, and you'd like to hear more inspiring stories about ordinary people who see extraordinary potential where others see limitations and obstacles, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Every week I share stories about how believing in unlimited human potential can transform what seems impossible into remarkable achievement. Which moment in this story resonated most deeply with you? Have you ever seen someone's exceptional abilities overlooked because others focused exclusively on their differences or supposed limitations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone recognize the hidden potential in their own child, student, or family member. Remember, the next time you meet someone like Grace Washington, pay attention to their wisdom about human potential and possibility. Sometimes the person who can unlock extraordinary abilities isn't the one with the most expensive credentials or institutional authority. It's the one who sees unlimited possibilities where others see limitations and believes that every child has remarkable gifts waiting to be discovered, developed, and celebrated.